Jonathan Travis, we're back on almost above average, but before we dive into the main topic, we can't ignore what's going down in Texas right now. The state is reeling from one of the deadliest floods in decades. Whole communities are devastated, dozens of lives lost, and heartbreaking stories coming out of places like the girls' summer camp along the Guadalupe River. But what's making this disaster even more controversial is the drama swirling around our nation's weather services. There's a lot of finger pointing, and some officials are blaming the National Weather Service for not giving enough warning, while others are saying their hands were tied because of recent staffing cuts and budget slashes from the administration. There's talk about critical weather offices running short staffs, proposed cuts to climate and weather research, and even debates on whether these decisions play a role in the tragedy. It's become this perfect storm, not just in terms of the weather, but in how we prepare for and respond to these kinds of disasters. So I want to ask, how did we get here? Are these cuts political decisions really impacting our ability to keep people safe? Or is this just a case of unpredictable once in a century storm? And what does this all mean for the future, not just in Texas, but for communities across the country facing more extreme weather?
All right, let's tear into that. Let's break it down into three different parts. The extreme weather happening at all. Whether you want to admit it or not, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, the number of once in a lifetime or once in 1,000 years or whatever events seem to be creeping up in significance of impact and frequency. Like I had somebody earlier say, how many of these do I have to live through in my lifetime? It's like, well, all honesty, probably going to be a lot more, a lot faster, and a lot more severe. Flooding in everywhere from Texas up to North Carolina, significant impacts from major storms. And this wasn't even a hurricane. This was just a tropical storm. Like the impact a tropical storm made, killing maybe over 100 people by the time it's all said and done across multiple states.
This recording, right?
It was 80 it was almost 90 that I saw this morning.
Okay.
And the numbers are still going up. And then the flooding is still happening. There's parts of North Carolina that are completely inaccessible out in the mountain ranges. Again, it's like, all right, how many times are we going to go through this again? Oh, yeah, go on to WRL. There's tons of I-85 and I-40 all flooded out, towns flooded out. It's happening. It's happening. Like this shit happened last year.
We got tornado warnings last night. I didn't get a flood warning.
I got flood warnings. Yeah.
You did?
Oh, yeah. But my point is the frequency and the significance of the impact, the damage or the amount it eats or whatever you want to use as your qualifier for significance is escalating. And the reason for this is global climate change. And regardless of your views, our weather is becoming more and more violent due to man-made interference on a significant scale. Every measure that we can use to determine man's impact on our environment, carbon dioxide per square inch or parts per million or heat impact or just pick a number. Desalination of the ocean based on new icebergs melting and the polar caps melting, the North Atlantic current getting ready to shut down. Like it's getting warmer across the world in every conceivable way. And people are like, well, we're in a cooling period. Well, technically we're supposed to be because of man-made interference. We're not really. So anybody who went, oh, well, that was just a one-time thing is just, I hope that sand tastes good that your head's buried in.
Have you engaged with anyone online about this topic in today and yesterday?
Yeah, there's so many different concepts and scientific understandings that are just being used to get away from the significance. It's like, don't blame me for what somebody else did, or it's you don't understand the whole cycle mentality, or it's this thing. So there's this thing called Merovingian cycles where the Earth's rotation around the sun changes depending on different other astrological effects, like our movement through space, our proximity to other stuff. There's things that they're detecting where there's gravity wells without mass, which is a whole thing that they're starting to learn about.
Gravity wells without mass?
If you look at I'm going to explain this very poorly, so I apologize to anybody who knows this topic.
That's okay. That's going to spur a lot of good comments and create good engagement, I've noticed.
But
when we say something we're not quite sure of, we get a bunch of comments on TikTok. And we appreciate it. I love making videos to your comments on TikTok, so keep it coming.
There's something about subatomic particles. There's one for magnetism. There's one for mass. There's one for gravity. And I forget what the others are. But there may be pockets of space where there's gravity only without mass. And those subatomic particles have a higher density of the gravity ones, causing us to maybe shift our orbit a little bit depending on what's going on. There's thoughts about ninth planet maybe in a cycle causing issue, whatever.
Neil deGrasse Tyson said Pluto is not a planet. There is not planets. I
But
heard
there
that
may be
yesterday.
an actual ninth planet. Think they've mathematically detected that there is another planet that we haven't observed,
Shit.
but is on an orbit that makes it hard for us to observe. But based on the math, they think there may be one.
I am familiar with this. This is that one rogue one that has like a completely opposite orbit that's like it comes
Yeah, they're
through
thinking
like
it
once
might
every
be.
340 billion years or some shit like that.
Yeah, it's
Almost
interesting.
like a comet, really.
But our, and that's the thing a lot of people don't realize is our solar system as a whole is also moving through space. It's not
Mm.
just a fixed point in the universe. As we go, that's one of the things they were talking about is like dark matter might be causing our sun to become more violent during certain times, and then once we get out of that field, it calms down, and that's why there's solar cycles. I don't know how much is true. I'm not a scientist in that regard. I just know that these are topics being discussed and shown, and dark matter may or may not exist. But regardless of all this, there are things that make our solar cycles change. There are things that changes our orbit. And we know this. This is scientifically proven at this point that we go through cooling and warming periods based on our proximity to the sun and the sun's level of activity. But the carbon dioxide and other gases that we're off-putting changes the reflective properties of our atmosphere and allows for it to absorb more heat from solar radiation, which causes our planet to get warmer. And that's just the way it is. Like our air used to be significantly denser, and so we had cooling periods. Now, some people are like, oh, well, it had an asteroid is. And yeah, that's true. But at the same time, that wasn't just the one ice age. There's been many. So there are cycles. But regardless, I mean, we can track that the air has definitely become more toxic, microplastics and methane and carbon dioxide, all that's changing. And then the icebergs melting is causing more fresh water, which is changing our salination point, which may
Yep.
shut down the North Atlantic current. It's wild. But regardless, like we're seeing more and more significant activity every year. Every year is a hotter year than the one before it. This is known.
There's
So
more people. We have a bigger population. So
I don't know
I
if you
think we
saw
need to
this.
expand the weather prediction services.
I don't know if you saw this, but they may have severely underestimated the 8 billion people. We could be closer to 12, and we don't know because of our census metrics are maybe completely off.
Hmm.
That's a whole thing. Anyway, so weather's changing. It's getting more violent every year. It's getting warmer every year. These are facts. We just know it. So in theory, what we should do is like, oh my God, how many hurricanes do we have to have before we get a weather service to be more aggressive and learn better? How can we put money into this system so we can learn and predict? There's this whole thing I learned when I was growing up. If an intersection with no traffic light has enough accidents and enough fatalities, they put a light in to protect it. Why aren't we doing the same thing with our weather system? And that's because of the thing I told you multiple times. This new bill in the Republican Party is pushing one mandate above all. If it benefits the 99% and not the 1%, then it goes bye-bye. So what did Doggy and Trump organization do? They turned the budget on its head for the NOAA and all the other government agencies related to the weather, reduced staff, what was it, like 30-40% or
You're
something?
talking about the weather services?
Yeah, they
I thought it
reduced
was
the staff by
6,000
like,
people.
yeah, but that's like 30% of the overall staff or something. And then they reduced the budget like 50%, something like that, 40,
Right.
50%.
Remember that
So,
video of the weatherman coming online and saying, he showed a video of him reliably predicting a hurricane like the year before, and he drew a conclusion. He's like, "You see how I did that last year? I'm not going to be able to this year because they took away, whatever system that allows me to do that prediction." So that kind of is the
and this
backdrop
is,
of
yeah.
Texas. When we get to Texas, it's like I already know about that. So going into it, I didn't hear about flooding or possible
So,
storms. I didn't hear about nothing. I heard
yep.
about people dead already after it had flooded, and I
So
didn't
blaming
hear warnings.
the weather service is another great example of shooting the messenger. It is the
Right.
quintessential
Right.
shooting the messenger. It's like, you didn't save us from ourselves by telling us to get out. It's like, well, we can't. We told you guys we couldn't. We told you we were going to have impaired services if you cut our budgets. You did it anyway. Here's what you get. Is this a tragic loss of life? God, yes.
Yeah.
Unquestionably.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I am so sad. So many people are dying. I'm so sad about these kids in this
Our
was
hearts
it
go out to
Mistake
the
Camp
families
or
and the
whatever.
victims. Honestly.
God, I feel so like I see the pictures, it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
I have all the feels on that. I get it. On the other hand, I'm very frustrated because our only line of defense, our only safety measure is that the weather monitoring and investigation of the sciences into how we can predict this better has been taken out at the knees in order to lower the overall government's budget, in order to reduce the amount of debt we're going to take on by giving all these tax cuts to the rich. And that's what it comes down to. So if, in all fairness though, feelings and emotions aside, Trump and group were okay with Americans dying in order to give tax cuts to the rich, and this is a symptom of it. This is an outcome of that behavior. So you guys voted for this. Sorry, I can't help you.
I got into
Good luck.
a debate this morning. A friend of mine that lives in Texas posted something about, like, can't believe you guys are all blaming the government. You don't know, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, huh. So he was there in Texas, and we got into a heated debate with a bunch of people in Texas. And it seems like I was the only one that's like, dude, the administration clearly dropped the ball on this. And they were like, yeah, but these sort of, like, the argument.
All right, so let's cut that off. Let's cut this off at the knees, right? Can the government control the weather, or did they create the flood? Can they alter the weather significantly enough to create a hurricane or create flooding? Obviously no. And if the Trump administration is the administration in charge and such a thing exists and it's their fault, or it doesn't exist, Biden didn't do it either, and it's all a bunch of bullshit they fed you in order to distract you from the reality that we all as a collective have been enjoying fossil fuels and other methods of industrialization, and is biting us in the ass. Pick one side of the road, please. You know, either Trump killed you on purpose with his weather machine, or the oil industry is killing you slowly over time. Pick one side.
Yeah. You know what? Let me talk to that whole, everyone that was on that post. I did post this podcast link in there. Let's get you all on the podcast, especially that chick that called me a dumb liberal or whatever. Get her on the podcast. Let's
what? Talk about this. For saying that weather's not this isn't natural?
No, she said a comment like, "Look at all your dumb liberal friends" or something. Because I was like, "What's up?"
Attack the person, not the idea, because the idea is solid.
Like, typical, so typical.
It's like you can't win an argument, so you call somebody fat or ugly. It's like, come on,
right?
Is that the best you got? You ran out of actual valid arguments. Oh, you didn't have any to start with. Gotcha. Good job.
Right.
Go back to high school or elementary school or whatever.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is there's no weather altering machine that can create hurricanes and tornadoes and rainstorms and all this kind of stuff. This is an outcome of global warming. More is going to happen. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. And I don't know what's going to happen first because I can't predict it. Do we switch off and the weather calms down as we move over to the new generation of electric vehicles and new industrialization techniques that end up becoming more cost effective? Or is it runaway? Like, I don't think anybody actually has that question or answered. And it's scary. It's going to be scary.
Here's a viral question. How much is the government responsible for the deaths in Texas in this flood? How much do we hold the government accountable for?
It depends on... So do you know about the report that Exxon created back in like the 40s or something like that? There's this report that they used to predict what would happen to the environment and the world if we kept using fossil fuels at the predicted levels, which is what ended up happening. And in that report, they said this is going to happen, like runaway weather problems, the death of humanity. It was in the document. Exxon shelved it, hid it, and they've been bribing government officials for more and more and more deregulation and less control and oversight. And if you look at the big, beautiful bill, they de-incentivized electric vehicles in favor of gas. And if you look at Trump, it's burn, baby, burn, drill, drill, drill. And it's like, oh, we're going to back to fossil. Well, why is that? Because he's being paid millions of dollars by fossil fuel industry to keep it up. Coal industry would go out of business today if we stopped subsidizing it. Like 50 to 60% of revenue is what I saw that we supply based on government subsidies. If you took those away, all those jobs will go away. That whole industry basically would be gone. We don't need coal. That's just ridiculous. And then people are like, well, the jobs. It's like, okay, cool. Are there what if these miners went over and helped with the lithium? What if they went over and helped with the cobalt? What if they went over and helped with the other resources that we need?
That's the argument that they never see to. It's always like, they're taking my jobs. It's like, I guess, but those jobs are changing. It's not like they're just going away completely.
And the coal is
to another sector.
And you can also say the coal is a money laundering scheme. So they pay lobbyists to keep them in power and keep their subsidies. The government turns around and gives them subsidies and reimbursement, and the money cycle just kind of loops back. So if you're talking about how government corruption is influencing policy against the best interest of the American populace, yeah, they're very corrupt and directly related to what's happening today. If you say that the cuts to and not putting more money, more effort, and more emphasis on trying to figure out what's going on and trying to stem those tides, and instead going the other way with it and doing everything they could in this big, beautiful bill to escalate the things that caused global warming and global climate change and pollution and everything, the deregulations, like how many more lakes have been polluted in the last since Trump took office because they turned down regulations and banned regulations? Like, come on, guys. Whole lakes and river streams have gone polluted. It's crazy. So they're purposely trying to put corporate profits above the humanity's survival in every conceivable way. Ask any real scientist, they'll tell you exactly what's going on. It's the only lie is Fox News says, well, coal is better than solar. It's like, how? That's ridiculous. Or wind. Like, how is wind? Oh my God, birds are dying to the windmills. It's like, have you seen these things? How slow they are, how fast they turn, how big they are. It's insane.
It's the birds'
They're not
fault,
turning out.
guys. Unpopular opinion: the birds dying at a windmill. It's the birds' fault.
Well, Darwinism. Anyway, so yes, the government is partially responsible for these deaths. The big oil and big fossil fuels is responsible for these deaths. It is not NOAA's fault for these deaths, period. If you don't have the tools, if you don't have the services, if you don't have the satellites, if you don't have the staff, and you don't have the investment from the government or from private parties to do the research, to understand what's happening, to watch the trends, to be able to predict it, like every weatherman, every scientist, and every person in the know is telling you is happening, then this is what you get. So this is the mess he made from Doggy and all those guys. And this is what we got to look forward to as the next one coming around. And the jokes about, oh, well, I hope it hits here next is derogatory. But at the same time, like the reality is if a hurricane, like this tropical storm that hit North Carolina, like I didn't know it was going to happen. Did anybody else? Did anybody I know? No. We knew they were going to have some weather, but
we were on the GPS and we were headed home and it was sunny outside and we got a severe storm warning. And I was like, it said it would affect our way home. And we were 10 minutes away from home and it was sunny our whole way home. And I was like, that doesn't seem right. Like, that's wrong. Because there's no clouds in the sky. But apparently there was a storm and it hit somewhere else, like you were talking.
And we've reached a point where the weather has changed significantly enough to where there is weather behavior that is not predictable by the average person or easily addressable by the average person, period. That water level rising is not something you're going to just see from 5 miles away and know to get the hell out. Right. The evacuation alerts didn't happen when they needed to. We didn't have enough warning ahead of time and news outlets. And the politicalization of the weather is just absolutely insane. And it's meant to do one thing and one thing above all others. Make each of us fight against each other so that they can keep stealing from your pockets with these tax breaks and like the fact that we might have the first trillionaire in the next year or two. Like a trillionaire? Why should that even exist? It's like,
you know what I've noticed in the comments when I'm engaging with someone of the opposing opinion is that I forgot what I was going to say. Damn it, I had a good point there too.
You know, people defend the rich. It drives me nuts. Like the whole concept of they're defending them because they want to be them, but a lot of the people that want to be them are nowhere near or ever going to be them. So It's like, why are you defending the people that are literally making your lives worse on a daily basis?
They're shitting on you.
They don't care about you, and Texas was a great example of that.
I want to know what you guys think. Hey, let's ask the people. What do you guys think? Was it the administration's fault? Or how much responsibility do we put on the Trump administration for the deaths that took place in Texas because of the flood at the Guadalupe River? Is it 50%? Is it
now? Let's say they didn't change any of the budget funding. FAA was still what it was 3 years ago. It was a fully operating apparatus to the best we've ever had.
Right.
It still would have flooded. The river still would have flooded. We may have known about it slightly earlier, and we may have been able to warn and gotten some people to safety.
Maybe less death.
A little less. But if you look, we had the full apparatus when the hurricane went through last year, and tore up the whole Appalachia and into it. And there's still tons of death from that. We had the whole apparatus going. The reality is
Right.
we are not preparing ourselves for the climate change events that are happening.
And even if it wasn't the cuts to the weather system, when you do the cuts and then you have a weatherman or several weathermen saying statements like that months ago, and then you have a weather event where it looks like something happened, like all these things paint a picture. Yeah, maybe it wasn't, but the breadcrumbs sure indicate that.
And again, even if the NOAA was fully funded, no cuts to it had ever happened, the river still would have flooded. People still would have died. It just would have been potentially a little less.
Yeah, let's leave it there. And what do you guys think in the comments? I really want to know. And if you want to send a longer email, send it to mcmedia.network.llc@gmail.com. Let us know what you think. I really want to know.
Call your congressman. This shit's only going to get worse. And even refunding NOAA and all that kind of stuff is only going to get us part of the way. Major initiatives need to take place to stem the overall ship before it wrecks.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. In the meantime, go to buckedup.com and use code McMedia1 at checkout for huge savings on all fitness apparel and products. All right, Jonathan. We'll see you tomorrow. Or maybe not.
Let's do another one.